Skater lunge. Start standing straight up and down. Take a small step back and to the side and come down into a lunge. I'm going to come forward again. So I am bending my knee, but primarily it stays where it is and my butt goes back. And then come up and switch. I'm going to do this forward and backwards so you see what's happening. All right, so again, small step back. You don't need to take a big step, small. Sit back with your butt, and you're almost rotating, so you should be feeling this in the outside of your hip. And then you're going to come back up, go to the other side. Try to come as low as you can, and you are just going slow. To add a little difficulty to this, you can come down really slowly and come up quickly, a little explosively. Keep your hip out and do a little twist with your arms. And as you exhale, you're coming up. Another way of adding a little bit of weight is to hold a kettlebell or a dumbbell in a goblet squat position. Do the same thing with a little rotation. Now I have to think about balance a little bit more. I'm not exactly sure what we're calling this, but it's a reverse lunge with a twist and a swing. So I'm going to do it forward so you can see how we do it. I'm going to start with the weight in my right hand and kind of caught on my left. You can do this with a dumbbell or a kettlebell. I'm going to step back with my right foot, swing the weight back, step forward and rotate and catch it in my left hand. So step back. To make this a little harder, you could do more of a reverse lunge and step a knee, bring your knee down, twist and come up. The heavier the weight gets, the more you swing it and the more rotational stress your core has, so that therefore it builds that stability. So I'm going to start on my left side, swing back, step forward and rotate. I'm going to start with the weight on my right hand, and you can play around with which hand you do this with which foot. So I'm going to start with the weight on my left foot, and I'm going to bring my right foot back. And I'm going to come down as low as I feel like I can, so my knee is bending, but my hip is going backwards. When I'm low, I'm going to bring the weight up into a row and come back. If that's too much, you can simply bring your toe back, and you're on your toes so that it's a balance, but you can't put your weight on it. You want to keep your weight over the front foot. So I'm going to come down into a row and back up. Down. So I want you to pay attention. I'm going to take the weight away. What happens to my knee? Pay attention to that. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see it. So when I come down, my butt is moving backwards. This knee bends, but it doesn't move in space. It stays over my front ankle. So I'm pushing my butt back and coming forward. Okay? The only difference is if I'm doing it as a balance, the knee will bend a little less and come back up. But then you have a row. You can also do the row with both hands. Bring it down to your toes. You can do the row on the same leg as the down leg, because that creates more rotational pressure, and you've got to work, both hands are forward, and you've got to work at keeping your torso more balanced. This is a COSSACK squat, or a side lunge with a COSSACK squat. And the COSSACK it's named for the Russian or Ukrainian dances where you're down on your knees and you're kicking out. I can't do any of that stuff, but I'm going to show you how you can do it being as awkward as I am. And the goal is to build the strength in your core, but primarily in your outside of your hips. So I'm going to step as wide as I can go. All right, so this is as wide as these old legs are going to go. In fact, that's probably even too far. If you have a chair or a TRX, that can help. What your goal is to bring a butt cheek to your heel. So I'm going to bend my left knee. I'm working on bringing my left butt cheek towards my left heel. My right foot is starting to rotate and come up. Okay, so it's about as far as I'm going to come down, then I'm going to come back up. I'm going to rotate to the other side and try to do the same thing. It's not that my knee is coming forward, and I'm going to turn sideways in a moment. I am trying to sit back and then come back up. This is how slow you might need to go. Okay, let's come to the other side so you can see what my hips are doing. So I'm pushing my butt back and trying to bring it as low as I can while my outside foot does the work. The weight as I'm coming down is on my heel so that I can push back up with my heel. I would stake most of what little reputation I have as an awkward athlete on sumo deadlifts being the most important exercise for runners and cyclists, simply because it primarily works your glutes and it's called your posterior chain, basically your backside, which is exactly what we tend not to work when we are riding or running. So what I do is a sumo deadlift. So my feet get wide, and I'm going to turn sideways so you can see this as well, because there's a lot of things that are happening. The first thing I'm doing, and I'm going to use a kettlebell. It's right between my feet. My toes are pointed out just a little bit. I'm going to sit back and down. Okay, this is about as far down as I'm going to go. When I turn sideways, you're going to see that my knees are over my feet. So number one that we're going to work on is where my knees are and where my weight is. So my weight is on my heels, but my toes are claws. I'm going to inhale and stand up using my glutes. I'm going to come down, pushing my butt back. My knees stay right where they are. So number one is knees. I'm going to do that sideways so you can see that. Okay. Number two is the weight in your glutes. This is a glute exercise, so that when I am coming up, I'm driving up with my heels. So I'm sitting back with my butt, like there was a bench back here, and on my heels. I don't want to be like rolling my toes up, but the weight is solidly on my heels, and I'm going to drive with my heels. And then when I'm standing, I'm pushing my butt back first. So I will feel this in my glutes. Okay, we'll do this sideways again. So number two, again, are my glutes, and using my glutes and my heels. So sitting back, my weight is on my heels, my toes are claws, and I'm going to drive up with my heels to a complete standing position, lock out my butt here, pushing my butt back out and coming down. Number three is how you breathe. And I learned this from working with a client who had a prolapse surgery. So it's a 3-part breath that I call a squeagle. It's trademarked, so you can't steal it. And a squeagle comes from the Kegels and squeezing your belly. So there are 3 squeezes that you do. The first is that you're squeezing your belly button into your spine. The second is you're doing a Kegel. It's as if you were peeing and you had to stop peeing. That's a Kegel. The third is that you're squeezing your butt like you have gas in church, and it's going to be terrible if you let it go. So you got to squeeze everything. So practice that, squeeze all 3 of those things, and you're kind of holding your breath, okay? So the breathing is this. Inhale, come down, squeagle while you're coming down, all three, and then drive up and exhale. Inhale, start to squeagle. Okay, so let me show you how this works sideways first. First thing, knees. Second thing, hips and butt and weight. Third thing is breath. I'm going to start here. I'm going to inhale. I'm going to squeagle and exhale. Inhale, squeagle, exhale. So I am breathing really loudly so you can hear me. Normally I wouldn't breathe that loudly, so it's squeagle. Okay, again, forward. Inhale, squeagle, and press. The reason for the squeagle is that what that does is just like doing a hollow or any of the other core exercises, it creates a really solid brace of your belly and your lower back and your hips so that when you're down in this low position, everything is tight between your butt and your hips and your belly and your underbelly so that you are able to stay stable as you lift a heavy load. Number one, knees. Number two, your hips and where your weight is, like you're sitting back, not coming forward, but sitting back. And number three is your breath. Deadlifts. You can do them with kettlebells, dumbbells, or get a barbell and hold it in the middle.